This was not to happen. The chromosphere was to be ours. Now all we have is a pile of debris. You, General, are to blame.
He failed to deactivate the radar centers. I believe he is aware of the punishment.
Take him out and shoot him. Get him out of my sight.
Comrade Stalin, the General is not responsible for the destruction of the chromosphere. I personally monitored his actions.
And who then would be to blame? Clearly, the General is at fault.
Niet, comrade. It was you who failed in your actions. You did not inform the General of the other Allied transmitter that was nearby.
Is this true, Kuko? Was there a fourth transmitter?
We did not notice it on the first pass, but yes.
You disappoint me, Kukov. If the chronosphere is not to be ours, then let it be buried with the remains of the Allied dogs. Where are they? Nadia, where's their base of operations located?
We have traced Einstein's signal. He has moved to the coast of England. It must be the center of the command.
General, consider this your redemption. You are to lead the attack on the Allied headquarters. Level it! Destroy forever all traces of the Alliance.
Comrade, Commander...
Continue! Comrade. And you will find yourself on the floor with Kukov. Assemble a strike team. A continental Soviet Union is our destiny.
Affirmative. Reporting. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Lost. Affirmative. Reporting. Lost. Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Waiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Agreed. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
New construction options. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Report for
Construction
acknowledged.
complete. Cannot deploy here. Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Construction options.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Repairing. Construction complete. New construction
Vehicle
options.
acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction complete. New construction options. Building. Building.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Units
Awaiting
ready.
orders.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete. New construction options. Our base is under attack. Unit ready. Building.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Comrade, acknowledged. Comrade,
Naval unit lost.
yes sir.
Unit ready.
Comrade,
Building.
affirmative, acknowledged. Vehicle report, acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Vehicle reporting.
Construction complete. New construction options.
Vehicle acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Comrade, affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Awaiting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Naval unit lost.
Comrade, affirmative.
Unit ready.
Waiting.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Naval
Affirmative.
unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Ready and waiting. Affirmative.
Base
Acknowledged.
is under attack.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building. Unit lost. Building.
Reporting.
Unit ready.
Comrade, acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit lost. Construction
Acknowledging
complete.
order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building. New construction options. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Construction complete. Building. Preparing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Waiting order.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building. Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. Reporting.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building. Our base is under attack. Construction complete. Preparing. Building. Unit ready. Construction complete. Building. Unit ready.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. Unit ready. Building. On hold. Cancel. On hold. Cancel. Building. Unit ready. Building.
Waiting order.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Comrade. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting
Construction
affirmative. Yes,
complete.
acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building. Building. Unit lost.
Awaiting orders.
Unit ready.
Yes,
Building.
sir. Acknowledged.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Report acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building. Unit ready.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Waiting.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Unit lost. New construction options.
Yes, sir.
Silos
Affirmative.
needed.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Waiting
Silos
order.
needed.
Awaiting orders.
Unit ready. Building. Silos needed. Building. Silos needed. Unit ready. Building. Construction complete. Our base
Yes,
is
sir.
under attack.
Acknowledged.
Silos
Acknowledged.
needed.
Affirmative. Yes,
Unit
sir.
lost.
Acknowledged. Yeah, acknowledged. Yes, sir. Waiting order. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Silos needed.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Unit lost. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Silos needed.
Yes, affirmative. Acknowledged.
Silos
Affirmative.
needed.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative.
Silos needed. Silos needed. Building. Construction complete. Building. Unit ready. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Building. Unit ready. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building. Our base is under attack.
Yes, affirmative.
Construction
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Awaiting
Building.
acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes,
Lost.
affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Waiting
Building.
for affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Cancel. Building.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Yes, affirmative. Yes,
Unit
acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Construction
affirmative.
complete. Building. Construction complete. Building.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Reporting. Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Comrade. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Waiting for me. Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative.
Low power. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes,
lost.
sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Unit lost. Construction complete. Building. Insufficient funds.
Yes,
Naval
sir.
unit
Affirmative.
lost. Unit lost. On hold. Cancel.
Comrade. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Waiting order.
Our base is under attack. Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting order. Affirmative. 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 Comrade, acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting.
On hold. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle report.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Waiting order.
Building.
Waiting order. Waiting order. Waiting acknowledged. Order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Comrade. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Comrade.
Low power. Building. On hold. Cancel.
Yes, sir.
Construction complete. Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Affirmative. Yes, affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative.
Building. Building. Insufficient funds. Building. Our base is under attack. Unit lost. Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Waiting order.
Insufficient funds.
Report. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Vehicle affirmative. Comrade, acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Our base is under
Affirmative.
attack.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Insufficient funds. On hold. Cancel. Building.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Reporting.
On hold. Cancel. Unit ready. Building. Construction complete. New construction options.
Comrade, affirmative.
Repairing. Insufficient
Reporting.
funds.
Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Comrade?
Our base is under attack.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Unit
Acknowledged.
repaired.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. Waiting order. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Yes, sir. Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Awaiting orders.
Repairing. Unit
Comrade,
repaired.
affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit repaired. Repairing.
Vehicle acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit repaired. Repairing. Insufficient funds. On hold. Cancel. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Repairing. Unit repaired. Building. Repairing.
Yes, sir.
Unit repaired. Repairing. Naval
Waiting
unit
order.
lost. Building. Unit ready. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Our base is under attack. Unit ready. Building. Repairing. Insufficient funds. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative.
Very well.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost. Repairing. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Repair.
sir. Comrade. Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
repaired.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Waiting
Unit
order.
lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. Reporting. Waiting order.
Unit ready. Building. Our base is under
Comrade.
attack.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. At once. Affirmative. At once. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Insufficient
Yes, sir.
funds.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged.
Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit ready.
Vehicle acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
repaired. Repairing. Building. On hold. Cancel. Unit repaired. Repairing. Building. Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Reporting. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Repairing.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Construction complete. Unit ready. Building. Unit repaired. Repairing. Insufficient funds. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir.
Repairing. Repairing. Construction
Yes, sir.
complete. Our base is under attack.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Repairing. Insufficient funds. Repairing. Building. Unit repaired. Repairing. Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Comrade, waiting order. Yes, sir.
Repairing. Unit ready. Building. Insufficient funds. Repairing. Unit repaired.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Comrade,
Base is under
acknowledged.
attack.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade, acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Affirmative.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
On hold. Cancel. Construction complete. Repairing. Building. Construction complete.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building. Insufficient
Comrade.
funds.
Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Comrade.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Construction complete. Building.
Reporting. Yes, sir.
Our base is under attack. Building.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Report acknowledged.
Reporting. Vehicle reporting. Vehicle reporting.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative.
Repairing. Insufficient funds. On hold. Cancelled. Repairing. Building. Insufficient funds. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Construction complete. Building. Unit repaired. Repairing. Insufficient funds. Insufficient funds. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Repairing. Unit ready. Building. Unit repaired.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Repairing. Unit repaired.
Yes, sir.
Our base is under attack.
Vehicle reporting.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Construction complete.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Report acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building. Repairing.
Vehicle reporting.
Reporting. Reporting.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Waiting acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Repairing. Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Repairing. Unit repaired. Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders.
Unit
Yes,
repaired.
sir. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds. Repairing. Repairing.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Awaiting orders.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Vehicle acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Our base is
Acknowledged.
under attack.
Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Report acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Repair.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Repair.
Report affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Reporting. Comrade? Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Yes, sir.
complete. Building.
Vehicle reporting.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Comrade?
Construction complete. Building. Repairing. Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir.
Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Building. Low power.
Yes, sir.
Construction complete. Building. Repairing.
Report agreed. Affirmative. Agreed. Affirmative.
Building. Insufficient funds. Building. Construction complete.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building. Our base is under attack.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Preparing. Unit
Awaiting
ready.
orders.
Building. Repairing. Construction complete. Insufficient funds. Building. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Report
Building.
acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds. Construction complete. Repairing. Repairing. Building. Repairing. Unit ready. Building. On hold. Cancel. Building.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Insufficient funds. Unit ready. Building. Unit ready.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Our base is under attack.
Yes, sir.
On hold. Cancel.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Repairing. Insufficient funds. Construction complete. Repairing. Repairing. Unit ready. Building.
Comrade, acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Waiting affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Comrade, affirmative. Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Waiting order.
Repairing.
Affirmative. Waiting order.
Unit repaired. Repairing.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds. Repairing. Unit ready. Building. Unit repaired. Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting.
Repairing.
Acknowledged.
Unit repaired. Repairing. Insufficient funds. Repairing.
Vehicle
Insufficient
affirmative.
funds.
Affirmative.
Repairing. Insufficient funds.
Comrade, affirmative.
Report affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Reporting.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Waiting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Reporting.
Insufficient funds. Our base is under attack. Repairing. Unit ready. Building. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Insufficient funds. Repairing. Repairing. On hold. Cancelled. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit repaired.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Report. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Reporting.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Report. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired. Repairing.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Vehicle
funds.
reporting.
Yes, sir.
Repairing. Insufficient funds. Repairing. Unit
Yes, sir.
repaired. Repairing. Unit repaired. Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building. Repairing.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Comrade. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Repaired.
Affirmative. Waiting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Repaired.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Comrade. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Vehicle reporting. Awaiting orders.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Repairing. Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building. Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Report acknowledged. Report affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Affirmative.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Comrade,
Unit lost.
affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes,
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
is under attack.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting. Comrade. Acknowledged. Yes, affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Ready and waiting.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting. Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit lost. On hold. Cancel. Construction complete. Unit ready. New construction options.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Awaiting
Base is under
orders.
attack.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
Building.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Report. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Orders. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting orders.
Lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Affirmative. Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
New construction options. Training.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds. Unit ready.
Engineering.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Engineering.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Report. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Insufficient
Yes, sir.
funds.
Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Report. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack. Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Report. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative.
Vehicle
Affirmative.
acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
Unit ready.
Awaiting orders.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Report. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Comrade. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Awaiting orders. Yes,
Insufficient
sir.
funds.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Training. Building.
Yes, sir.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
On hold.
Yes, sir.
Cancel.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Report. Acknowledged.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Report. Affirmative.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Our base is under
Reporting.
attack.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Report. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Waiting affirmative. Order. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
Building.
Comrade.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Yes, sir. Reporting. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Our base is under
Acknowledged.
attack.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Very
Unit
well.
lost.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Report. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Vehicle acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Vehicle report. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Insufficient
Yes, sir.
funds.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Vehicle affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Vehicle
Unit
reporting.
ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes,
lost.
sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Awaiting order. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
Comrade, affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Insufficient
Awaiting
funds.
orders. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Report. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Vehicle
Yes, sir.
reporting.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes,
Reporting. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Waiting
Vehicle
order.
reporting.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Construction
Vehicle
complete.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit lost.
Comrade, Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Report affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir.
Construction complete. Building.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Building.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Vehicle
sir.
reporting.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Awaiting for
Insufficient
acknowledged.
funds.
Affirmative.
Building. On hold. Cancel. Construction complete. Building. On hold. Cancel. Building.
Awaiting
Comrade.
orders. Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Unit ready.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds. Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Waiting order.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Insufficient funds. Unit
Reporting.
ready. Building.
Vehicle report. Yes, sir.
Comrade.
Acknowledged.
Waiting order.
Vehicle reporting.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Preparing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit prepared. Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Comrade, acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Preparing.
Yes, sir.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative.
Awaiting Acknowledged. orders.
Yes, sir.
Unit
sir.
ready. Building. Repairing. Unit prepared.
Affirmative.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Yes, sir.
On hold.
Comrade.
Cancel. Repairing. Unit prepared.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building. Repairing. Unit repaired.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Awaiting
Affirmative.
orders.
Unit
At once.
lost.
At once.
Unit lost. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir.
Reporting.
Yes, sir.
Our base is under
Acknowledged.
attack.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building. Repairing. Unit repaired.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Vehicle
ready.
reporting.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building. Repairing.
Vehicle reporting. Awaiting orders.
Unit
Acknowledged.
prepared.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Repairing. Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building. Unit repaired. Repairing. Repairing.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Unit lost. Unit lost.
Reporting.
Insufficient funds. Unit lost. Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Comrade, acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Comrade, acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged,
lost.
sir. Waiting
Unit
order.
lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Waiting
Unit
order.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Report, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Awaiting orders.
Unit ready. Building. Unit lost. Insufficient funds. On hold. Cancel.
Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yeah.
Unit
Vehicle
lost.
reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Structure sold. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Report. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building. Insufficient funds. Structure sold.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting
Base
orders.
is under attack.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Waiting yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
On hold. Cancel. Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting
Unit
orders.
lost.
Yes, sir.
Insufficient
yes, sir.
funds.
Vehicle report. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Our base is under attack. Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle report. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Comrade, acknowledged. Affirmative.
Report acknowledged.
Comrade, acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Waiting
Affirmative.
order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Waiting orders.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Report
Insufficient
affirmative.
funds.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Acknowledged. Comrade, affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building. Repairing. Structure sold.
Yeah, okay.
Awaiting orders.
Unit
Affirmative.
repaired.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Naval unit
Yes,
lost.
sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost. On hold. Cancel. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Very well. Very well. Agreed.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle
Unit
report.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Building.
Waiting order.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Yes, sir.
Vehicle report.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Waiting order.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Comrade.
Mission accomplished.
Amazing, these English, how quickly they adapt. They must truly have been crying out for our victory. They have abandoned their old rulers faster than rats, leading a sinking ship. We have done what no one else has dared. The Soviet Union stretches across the entire continent. We have liberated Europe at last. It's time to celebrate. Tea? Well, why not? When in Rome. Excellent. General, you have covered yourself in great honor. I will see to it personally that you are very well taken care of. Nadia, this tea is truly excellent.
Thank you. I prepared it myself.
Poison? You bitch!
You bastard pig! You will never touch me with your filthy hands again! Well, General, this temporary chaos in Europe will only help to fuel the Brotherhood's cause. For centuries we have waited to emerge from the shadows, and now we will make ourselves known. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and took up residence in the land of Nod. You have done well to serve us, and for that, you should be rewarded. We estimate that the Brotherhood will tire of the USSR in the early 1990s. Until then, you will keep the peace. Fight our battles where you must, and you'll remain our loyal and obedient servant for the foreseeable future.
The foreseeable future. Comrade Chairman, I am the future.